Sup, players? Hello. Hello, my friends. Hello, my family. I've missed y'all. I've missed y'all. Hello. Hello. Hi. Hello. Psst. Oh, I've missed y'all too. I'm so glad to see you. You lovely family, you. I have missed y'all. We saw your vacay post. You didn't miss us. I did though. I did. I promise. Um, I have missed y'all actually. I enjoy our time together every day. Um, hello. Oh, it's good to see y'all's names up here again. I just I just miss our little family meetings every day. Um, it has been 84 years since I've seen y'all, but I will tell you, I slept for the first time in a while. I am around 87% less cranky and stressed out than I was before. That's a positive. And there's all kinds of exciting stuff going on. So even though we have been apart and we have missed each other, um, absence makes the heart grow fonder, or something like that. Um, I am very excited to see y'all though. I have been watching the Diddy verdict stuff this morning. Did y'all see that? There were oh, let me pop this chat out so we can let me get my life together. Get your life together, Brandy. There we go. I gotta get a cut. I'm used to streaming at the other place in the office. I'm at the beach this week, so I am getting my life together. So did y'all see the Diddy stuff today? Did I get my package? No. I will go today. I gotta go run a couple errands anyway. I'll do that when we finish here. I haven't been to the post office in a long time. I haven't been here. So I will go today. And then I'm gonna get a post office box at the house because it's much closer. Um, is this top fans chat thing new or new to me? I don't know that I've seen that before. I don't know that I've seen the top fans thing before. That's the first thing I think I've seen it. So I don't think it's just new to you. I think it's new to, if it's new to you, it's new to me as well, because I don't know what it is. Haven't seen it. Quite surprised at the verdict. I was too, actually. I was too. If you have not seen the verdict, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh no, okay. I didn't do the wrong thing. I've got 100 things going on right now, and I thought that I just sent the wrong thing to the wrong person. Anyway, if you have not seen the verdict, I don't think it's what we were expecting. I know I wasn't expecting it. If, oh, dang it. I've been waiting on a text and it just came through and it's not the text I was wanting. All right. That's okay. It's okay. All right. work mode. I'm trying to squeeze everything in that I have been neglecting for the last few months, and I have so much going on right now. So I'm going from like Kohberger to podcast to wedding planning to house stuff to plan. Just I've got all the things. I've got every tab in my brain is open right now. So I'm like swapping back and forth, and I'm medicated. I'm like coming across as unmedicated, Brandy, only because I've got so much going on at once. So I am scatterbrained trying to deal with everything all at once. All right. No, not that's not what I wanted. No, Okay, I'm turning off my notifications because my phone is blowing up. Y'all, I need a personal assistant, and you know what it is? It's because Chat Daddy's not here. Do not disturb. I'm turning this on. It's too much to deal with. It's because Chat Daddy's not here, and I'm having to do everything by myself, and I forgot what that's like. How long is the plea hearing going to take? I'm not really sure because it kind of depends. Here's what's interesting about this. The first plea hearing, if y'all remember, he wouldn't even speak. The judge had to enter a plea on his behalf because he wouldn't even speak. So this go round, I guess now all of a sudden he's gonna speak, and his family is supposed to be there, which is interesting. Oh my gosh, all these volunteers. Yes, please help. Send help. I am trying to do everything. You know, me and Chat Daddy got married on April 4th, like just like a very small, you know, little secret surprise wedding. But our actual wedding is going to be on April 4th of next year. So I'm trying to get everything planned, and it has not been an easy task. I tell you what, I give it up for wedding planners because it's so much, and I'm trying to do everything like all while I'm in between trials. All right, we just got the live feed. Let me share my screen so we can watch and wait on them to come in. So, Chat Daddy is at the house. I'm at the condo, so he'll be back tomorrow. I'm there in spirit and here in chat. I need you. Can the judge deny it? Yes. Okay, so here's the interesting thing with this too. There are some family members who, like the victim's family members, who are like not excited about this at all. And then there are some who support it. That makes it kind of difficult because the judge, you know, can take everything into consideration. But here's the thing. I don't think that Idaho has wanted anything to do with this the entire time because it is so, it is such a mess. It was going to be a very long trial. I understand, you know, I can try to understand where the family's coming from. And I saw Kay posted, you know, Kay went through this with Lori Vallow and all of Lori Vallow's trials. Kay Woodcock is the sister of Charles Vallow and the grandmother of JJ. And I saw where she posted something yesterday that said, you know, like she went through some of that too. And she didn't want a plea deal because she wanted, even though it's life in prison, because she wanted to, I guess, like have, you know, justice served. And I can understand that. I'll never know what that feels like, you know, God willing. But I appreciated hearing her perspective because my first thought was, oh, that's great for the family if they're doing a plea because then the family won't have to go through the trial, because I can only imagine how difficult that trial would be. So, but I guess some of the family members are good with it, some are not. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, so for the Diddy thing, saw Lauren Cullen report wild. I was shocked by that. I really was. I really was. I heard he's pleading guilty because the state will use a firing squad for the execution. So they just brought the firing squad back. That's like a new thing that they're, like, I think all that started again, last year when they started or the year before? I don't know. Everything's running together now. When they started talking about bringing that back. But he has tried and tried and tried to get death penalty off the table, and they will not take it off the table. And I think that he's seeing how much evidence they have against him, and it's making him be like, you know what? Maybe I'm better off just pleading guilty and getting life instead of a firing squad. So, it'll be interesting. We have, tonight, I'll be on Vinnie Politan talking about all of this as well. So if y'all want to tune in tonight at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, I will be on Vinnie Politan talking about Kohberger on Court TV. It's always difficult with multiple victims in the different families. Yeah, because, you want things. That's the thing. It's like, it's such an emotional and hard time anyway, right? So it's never going to be a perfect scenario because no matter what, it's emotional, it's sad, it's, difficult. And so plea deals, I was thinking about when, oh God, I've blocked his name out because he's a terrible person. What's his, Chad Doring? Is that it? In Claremont? Dorman? Why am I blanking on the name? Because I've blocked him out of my mind because he's a terrible person and I hope he rots in prison. He is rotting in prison. Dorman? Dorman, yes. Okay. I thought it was Dorman. You ever have those names where like you can't, it sounds right, but you can't remember for sure. Anyway, when he took the plea deal, I remember thinking like, okay, that's a great situation because I cannot even imagine how difficult that trial would be for the wife and the stepdaughter, along with everybody else. If you're not familiar with that one, Chad Dorman, he's in Claremont County, Ohio, and he, I cry every time I talk about it. It's one of the hardest cases that, he shot and killed his 3 young boys. Like they were napping. He like basically hunted them down as they tried to run away. He hunted them down and killed them. The mom tried to save one of them and he shot at her, like shot her thumb because she was trying to save. His stepdaughter like tried to take one of the boys and get away, and he followed her and was like, if you don't put him down, then I'm going to shoot you too. And she put him down and he shot the boy right in front of her, and then she ran right down the street to get help. I mean, this case, like I think that one's I'm getting teared up now too. I think that one's one of the ones that is hearing the body cam too, and hearing that mama scream. The nightmare of that, I can't even imagine. So for something like that, I was like, oh, thank God he took a plea deal, because I can't imagine that young girl having to go through that trial. I can't imagine that mama having to go through that trial. It was so bad. Did he snap? No, he planned it for months. Planned it for months and admitted to planning it for months, but they couldn't use that admission in court because he was not properly read his Miranda rights. Whew. That one was hard. But then you have cases like this where the family isn't necessarily, or not all of the, family members are necessarily wanting the plea deal. So, I heard a detective say the state may have information they don't really want out there. Then he's mad about the plea deal. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, Sinbad. The families that don't understand will understand in about 5 years. They're guaranteed he will not get any appeals. They will be able to move on, honoring their loved ones now. I know. I do think that I can definitely understand that, because it is such a long process. After there's first of all, juries are unpredictable. We've seen that. Hello, Diddy. Hello, Casey Anthony. Juries are unpredictable, so you never know what's going to happen. But also, there's the appeals process, like you mentioned. So it drags on and on and on. So I do think that's that's good too. April Griffin, hello. I just glanced down. I don't have my old lady glasses on, and I just glanced down and thought that said April the giraffe. And I just had flashbacks. Do y'all remember April the giraffe who was pregnant for 84 years? I wonder how that baby's doing. Anyway. The family should have a say, though. I agree with that, but the problem with this one is the families don't all agree. So that does make it a little bit more difficult on this specific case. So. I'm still my heart's pounding. Just talking about that Chad Dorman stuff, ooh. Yeah, Dorman, it was horrific, and he was just sitting on the porch no big deal. While that mama cried, oh gosh. I think as a family member, I personally would want to go to trial just so I could finally see and hear all the evidence and face the accused. I can understand that. Steve, oh yeah, I saw this. It's mostly the first statements that I saw were from their family saying that, they felt like the state had failed them for this. They want him to have to, Kohberger to have to disclose everything and not be able to make a dime on any of it. I get that. Since there's a deal, have you felt Kohberger was guilty all along? I am very firm on innocent unless proven guilty. I do think that there was a lot of evidence that pointed toward the right person. So it is not a case where I'm looking at it oh my gosh, they have the wrong person. He has the presumption of innocence. But I think based on the evidence that I've seen, I think it does point toward him. April the giraffe. Long live April. Oh, I guess not long live April. April died a year or so ago. Didn't know that. Oops. Well, R.I.P. April the giraffe. We have a giraffe here named Tony at Zoo World. Do we know if there are going to be impact statements today? I need to prepare if I'm going to bawl my eyes out. I am not really sure, honestly. Gosh, impact statements. Okay, for every single trial, those of you who followed me for a while know I say this every single time we get to impact statements. I'm like, this is, of all the parts of the trial, the hardest part, but I think one of the most important parts is the impact statement part. That is the hardest for me, but I think it's so important. I think it's such an important part for the family to be able to, you know, really express. Because could you imagine having to sit silently in court listening to some of that stuff and not be able to say anything or like throw things? I can't even. So I think that those are so, oh, and I cry like a baby every time. But oh gosh, if they are going to have them today, that's going to be difficult. That officer told him, oh yeah, the officer told Doberman, you have the right to remain silent and I suggest you effing use it. He didn't say effing, he said the whole word. Yeah, that one, I think I put that on my TikTok. I think that one's at like 2 million views. That one, that was a moment. That was a moment. Heather says, I'm going back to school. Thank you for helping me seal the deal with the Karen Reed trial. I'm going back to get my associates in. Now I got to scroll and find what you're getting your associates in. Paralegal studies. Ah, I think that's so cool. That's so cool. I'm going to get blasted for this. I watched the Preppy Party trial. I have not watched any part of that at all. Until the defendant got onto the stand, I thought not guilty. Now I don't think the prosecutor has me 100% convinced of his guilt. Interesting. No impact statements today. That is for sentencing. But aren't they? I thought they were doing the sentencing if they're accepting the plea deal today. I know it's different in every state, but Steve won't be there because he couldn't support the plea. Ah, gosh, I hate that. I hate that. I've been going back and listening to the Letitia Stalk case. So I did like 7 episodes on that, on the podcast, and Letitia is a nightmare. Innocent until proven guilty, for sure. It didn't take long to prove her guilty. That heifer. That heifer's out there. Oh, sentencing not until late July. Hi, 80s. I'm assuming judge will set a date for official sentencing so families and victim advocates can prepare. That makes sense. Yeah, so late July. I'll find a date. And we'll make sure we're scheduled for it. I've been listening to the 13th juror. Finish the heifer. Now on to Rudolph. That heifer. There's a YouTube channel that does a month FOIA on Letitia's phone calls, and they play them on their channel. You know, I have seen that, and I listened for a moment. But having to do that podcast and listen to those hours and hours of FBI recorded phone calls, after that, I was like, I can't listen to Letitia anymore. I would read the transcripts if that was available, but I cannot listen to her voice anymore. Not a fan. Not a Letitia fan. She was one of the I mean, that heifer. Ugh. What trial is next then, since Kohberger's taken a plea? What do y'all think? Donna Adelson is supposed to be starting. You know, for my people that have been with me for a while, we covered Charlie, of course. I was in the courtroom for Charlie Adelson. Now they done got his mama. They picked her up at the airport. The day after Charlie Adelson was convicted, his mama booked a one-way ticket to Vietnam for her and Harvey. So look, I'm not for everyone. If you don't like it here, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you watch somewhere else, but you don't have to announce it. It's not an airport. We don't need to have departures announced. After the Reed verdict, I went back and started your 13th podcast from the beginning because I missed listening to you, loving it. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Just listen to the Letitia episodes and wow, that woman, right? Ooh. Ooh. That woman. I went back and watched the Travis Rudolph trial. Wow, spicy. Yes. And yes. I have a little something in the works for that too. Crazy trial. Crazy, crazy trial. I have not been following the trial for Crystal Rogers. I honestly, since the Cara Reed trial ended, I have not watched any trial stuff at all. I've been trying to actually catch up on sleep and other work and seeing my family and doing all of the things. So I have not watched any trial coverage at all. I've kept up with some of the updates like with Kohberger and Diddy and stuff like that, but I haven't actually watched any trial stuff at all. I don't think Letitia remembers what the truth is after all of the lies and BS. That's what was crazy about her, right? Because she would be on the phone saying, okay, I'm ready to tell you the truth. And then she would come up with some wild story. And then they'd be like, okay, you're a liar. And she'd get mad. How dare you say this? And then hang up. And then she'd call right back. Okay, now I'm ready to tell you the truth. And then they go through like ad nauseum through the whole thing over and over again. It was wild. Wild. Was it supposed to start at 1? Yes. Can we watch Don Adelson, but also stay abreast?
Oh. Then I will Stephen Hitler, presiding judge.
Let me see that.
They started that fast. I appreciate their really good camera views.
All right, this is CR 0124316665. Defendant is present in custody with counsel, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Jennings, and pardon me, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Massoff, and Ms. Barlow. The state's present with Mr. Thompson, Mr. Horowitz, Ms. Jennings, and Mr. Nye is here as well. Am I miss anybody? I'm sorry.
Ms. Allen is here as well.
Ms.
Your
Allen
Honor.
is here as well. Very well, thank you. All right, we are here today to entertain a change of plea. Before I start, I want to address some issues of concern and otherwise. First, I appreciate everybody in attendance today being on their best behavior. Please, no outbursts or demonstrations. Any such conduct will result in immediate removal and may result in an inability to attend further court proceedings in this case. I want to point out that there have been calls by some for the public to contact me and my office in an attempt to influence my decision-making in this case.
Oh, wow.
This has been extraordinarily disruptive for court staff and the ability for them to get work done, not only in this case, but in other cases where defendants are entitled to have their cases processed, and frankly, as important, if not more so, for victims to have their cases processed in those cases. It's also highly inappropriate. The court is not supposed to, and this court will never, take into account public sentiment in making an opinion regarding its judicial decisions in cases. Courts should, and I always will, make decisions based on where the facts and the law lead me, period. I have not read any of the numerous messages nor listened to any of the numerous voicemails that have been sent to me and my staff. Those have all been forwarded to security and, where appropriate, to law enforcement. I ask that you not continue to mount such campaigns or to send me information like this because, again, it is not appropriate and frankly not something I would take into account when deciding a matter in a case like this. I also want people to understand some very basic concepts about the ideas of separation of powers, and what the court's duties are, and what the duties and the rights of the executive, or in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is. The executive, the elected prosecutor, is the sole authority in deciding what charges to pursue, including whether as well as what penalties to ask for, and what penalties to pursue, including the death penalty. This court cannot require the prosecutor to seek the death penalty, nor would it be appropriate for this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited. My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. If I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime. That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea. Finally, I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, the families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand. Prior to that time, I was under the belief that this case was proceeding to trial, as had been indicated, and my staff and I were busy continuing to work on preparations to have potentially 10,000 citizens of Ada County come to jury duty starting in mid-July, with the questionnaire process in mid-July. It was, once I learned of the defendant's decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this, getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing, again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires
Wow.
prior to the beginning of the voir dire process.
Wow.
And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or if for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified. And so that obviously required that we act quickly. And so some folks may have not had the amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here. And so, again, I apologize for that. I want to make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted during the hearing. Also, when we finish the hearing this morning, I ask that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the courtroom before you start to leave. Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today, as well as to all the security attendant today that you see, and some of whom many of whom you don't see, with less than 48 hours notice. And so I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment, burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another.
Ooh.
Defendant, as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing. The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count, so theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. But the defendant is not free to ask the court to do so under the plea agreement. Are there any other material terms of the plea agreement that the parties would like to make? Obviously, the plea agreement, the written plea agreement will speak for itself and be part of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very well. All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today?
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in the matter not being before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, and Mr. Kohberger, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right? Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include, on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime, to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment, to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Has anyone, other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. Other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
It's crazy.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case should you not plead guilty. Did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
Why do I feel like
I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, as to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the
No,
document.
life in
Hang on a
prison. He'll
second.
never get out.
All right.
He'll never get out.
So as to count one burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count two, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died. As to count three, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, You did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
I want to also make, for the record, the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
And then let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was the traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Brian Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include a trial, video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the
Echo is on their end. I
1122
can't do
King
anything about
Road
it.
area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, the defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom were to see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, this Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th, 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware Mr. Kohberger had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Mogen's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court, in public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. We try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Mr. Kohberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed, given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly, both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than one full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. Obviously, we have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or so in the morning, that we should be able to complete it all in one day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. The week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties, or the next week, the week of August 4, is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
The state, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right. So because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date, because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public, and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd, with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing, so we have time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
We'd have no objection for the order to remain in place through
All right,
sentencing.
I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be withdrawn, in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be, for some reason, I should. That said, obviously, I don't think the defendant, a bond was ever set for the defendant. Were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked, given his plea, and no longer the presumption of innocence. And in fact, now the actual conviction for the crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else today?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated
trial
and those
is-
4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated, and I'm sure that the jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned.
All right, please.
Hmm. What are we thinking? How are we feeling? Yeah, the gag will be lifted after sentencing, which will be interesting because there's so many things that I want to hear that hasn't been released, you know? Whew. Seeing how, they're asking him about this, and he's like, did you kill this person? He's just like, yep, yep, yep. It's crazy. Whew. What does the gag order keep from us? I missed that. So nobody's like police and um lawyers, like basically like anybody involved in the case, like nobody's allowed to talk about it. Um they had a lot of issues when that Dateline episode came out because they were like, there's information in that Dateline episode that they should not have, information that was not public. And the fact that Dateline had some of that information, they were like, that means that somebody's, breaking the gag order. I think that it's going to be one of those things like, we know that he was studying this type of thing. Like, this is what he was going to school for. And I think that he thought, I think he thought he could get away with it. What bothers me, and I think will always bother me, is why them? And what was his intention? Did he go in there intending on one murder? Did he I don't know. I don't know. Oh, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. Yeah, like why them? And was the intention on only one of them? Very sad. Very, very sad. Um, hmm. Definitely why anyone. I think that that comes with everything. I think that the thing about why them sticks out because most of the time when murders like this happen, it's not a random thing. You know what I mean? It's, well, first of all, it's pretty much always a spouse, right? Like, but in this case, it's not like there's not one spouse. This is 4 college kids. And I think trying to figure out, or not even trying to figure out, just wondering, trying to make sense of it. You can never really make sense of murder, right? But I think that some of the, not closure is the wrong word, but like some some of the, I don't even know what the right word would be for it. Some of the things that help give answers during a trial are finding out, what happened? How did we get here? And I think that that's one of the things that is going to be hard on this situation because we don't have any answers for the families on how we got here. What made him go into that house? What happened? So because we knew he knew of them, or at least, kind of in passing, social media, but it's just so many unanswered questions. And I think that part's hard. I think that part will always be hard. And see, that's what Terry says. I think he was fixated on one of the girls. The rest were just there, unfortunately. And I think that that's the part that I have the most questions about. Like, and that's why I say, like, did he go in there for one? And then all hell broke loose. And then he ended up, everything that happened. I don't know. So put it on your calendars. We will be back on July 23rd. We'll be back on July 23rd. And maybe 24th, depending on how long it takes. Annie Elise says documentary dropping next week will reveal so much info. That's right. That documentary comes out next week, like the 11th-ish, I think, right? Crazy. We need you before that. We might be able to do another live and pop on and see when other stuff happens. Big day today. Diddy verdict and Kohberger conviction. So, on Amazon Prime, I think so, right? I can't remember. I think it's Amazon Prime. But they said that there's a lot of inside information on that. So Crystal says, for those upset that he won't have to explain himself, to think that he would get on the stand is presumptuous. Yeah, I don't think that he would have taken the stand. I feel like there are some criminals and defendants who get up there, and I say criminals and defendants because some of them are like, they are criminal, and some of them are defendants and innocent. I mean, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, but you know what I mean? Like, you think about, like, Letitia. She a criminal. Ain't no question about that. But I think with some of the defendants, you can tell a lot of times who's going to testify and who's not. Because very, very, very rarely is it ever a good idea for a defendant to take the stand. Let the evidence speak. Because a lot of times when you speak, it's you that makes people question everything, especially on cross-examination. But then you have like the ones that are like it's always the narcissist, right? I feel like it's like the self-defense and the narcissist. Those are the two that always take the stand. The self-defense, because you kind of, a lot of times the jury needs to hear from you to understand your thought process. Because if they're going to make a decision on your thought process, they're going to need to hear your thought process. So that's one. And that's one that I think a lot of times needs to happen. I get it. And then there's the narcissist who think that they're the smartest ones in the room and want to get up there and just talk. Oh gosh, Robert Tellis comes to mind. among many others. Gosh, when Tellis got up there and did, oh, lame duck. Lame duck. Tellis did not want to stop talking. Tellis would still be talking if they had not ended it. And has anybody looked into, what was that real estate company that he blamed everything on? Tellis and his kitten heels. What was the... That guy. When I saw in his big hat, bless him. When I saw Matt Johnson from Court TV, I saw him when I was at the Laurie Shaver trial, and he had just done that interview with Tellis, and I was like, how did you keep from rolling your eyes? That's just what I want to know. Tellis is probably still testifying to his cellmates. Amen. I don't think he can stop talking. And I think he should. We've heard enough. For those of you who didn't watch that trial, that one was an interesting one. He did it. And it's not allegedly, he's convicted. And the story that he came up with about how he's being framed is just the most ridiculous story. It makes no sense. Which was funny too, because the prosecutor had got a little snarky with him, which I was here for it. He needed that. And he was ridiculous. And he got up there, and his attorney was like, I'm not asking him questions. An attorney cannot ethically elicit testimony that they know to be false. And Tellis got up there, and his attorney was not questioning him. So he was basically allowed to do a monologue. And it was the monologue that never ended. He got up there and rambled and rambled and rambled. He was like, and he did this. So when he addressed the jury, he was like, yeah. And then I was just driving. And it's really frustrating for me because what was the name of that mortgage, or not mortgage, the insurance, not insurance, get your life together, Brandy. The name of the real estate company that he was blaming it on. Oh, I wish I remembered, because he was like, he over and over and over, he was like, it's them. They need to be investigated. Oh, it was wild. It was wild. I got tired of listening to him, so we started making a little thumbnail with his picture. And then Paris Hilton entered the picture, and it all just went downhill from there. That thumbnail. And then I made him into some glamour shots, and I had to keep myself occupied so that I didn't say colorful things about him. He was a wild one. I tell you what, people taking the stand is often, it's something. It's something. Compass Realty. Yes, Compass Realty. That's who it was. Is anybody investigating Compass Realty? No, they're just out there. Compass Realty's out there selling houses and framing people for murder, and nobody cares. Oh, gosh, he's a buffoon. He's a buffoon. Anywho. that dude. All right. So that is it for today, guys. Big day today. Robert Tellis, what case is that? That's Nevada versus Robert Tellis. He killed the journalist who was exposing him for different things, for getting fresh with a coworker, having an affair on his wife, whatever. He was getting fresh in a parking lot with a coworker, and he was an elected official, but like unopposed. And anyway, he treated everybody in the office like crap, and they had contacted a local investigative reporter who, kind of exposed him. It was crazy. That was a crazy trial. Gosh, that guy annoyed me. Swindled did an episode on Robert Tellis recently. Interesting. I truly hope he stubs his pinky toe every time he walks into his cell. That is so funny. I say that all the time because I don't want to actually wish like harm on anybody, but I wish all the time for people to like stub their toes. That's like my go-to. Because I'm like, I don't want to do actual harm to people, but I want you to be incredibly uncomfortable and annoyed when you do bad things. So. Don't watch it. His testimonial narrative will send you over the edge. He's something else. He's something else. He is the buffooniest of all the buffoons. Well, I don't know about that because there's so many of them out there. We've seen them in 4K. Dressing him up on Canva was fun. Doing his glamour shots was the second best part of that trial. First part was seeing justice. Second part was turning him into a meme and doing his glamour shots. These people. All right, y'all. I appreciate it. Oh, what's the next case I'll cover? Well, let's talk about that real quick before we go. What did I just... I'm losing things. I had a list somewhere. I'm dropping things. I had a list somewhere. Let's talk about that real quick before we go. This one, since it's no longer going to trial, is opening us up a little bit. We have other trials coming up. Let us know what you want to see. Donna Adelson, of course, is one that, if you've been with me for a while, that's one that we've all followed. I was at Charlie's trial. We've covered that one. For those of you who don't know, Dan Markell is FSU law professor, lives just a couple hours down the road. He was gunned down in his garage. He's going through a contentious divorce with a woman named Wendy Adelson. The neighbor heard the gunshots and was able to look out the window and see a silver Prius leaving Dan's driveway. And they were able to pull video surveillance from him at the gym and dropping the kids off and stuff that morning. And they saw a silver Prius that was trailing him. They ended up tracing it back to somebody in Miami. Now, Miami is like 7 hours away. Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. It's like 7 hours away. So yes, it's Florida, but I think people forget, like, Florida, like us, like Panhandle, Florida is different than Miami, Florida. It's two different, same state, two very different places. So that's like a 7 hour drive-ish. And they had come up here. It was traced back to, it's the leader of Latin Kings, Luis Rivera. and then Sigfredo Garcia had rented a car, come up here, stayed up here for a couple days, and then ended up shooting and killing Dan Markel. They were living together at the time, live-in baby mama of Sigfredo Garcia, named Catherine or Katie McBanawa, was dating Charlie Adelson at the time, which is the brother of Wendy Adelson, who was going through this really terrible divorce with the victim. So, the Aladdin Kings, yes, the Aladdin Kings. So, basically, it took a long time for them to investigate, get enough evidence to trace everything back to Charlie Adelson. The Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera were arrested first. Well, Luis Rivera was already serving time. He was serving federal prison time, so he was already in jail. So he took a plea deal in exchange for testifying against the others. So the first trial that happened was Katie McBanawa and her baby daddy, Sigfredo Garcia. They had a trial together. Sigfredo was convicted in that trial, but it was a hung jury for Katie. So she had to go through a second trial just by herself. She was convicted during that trial. Charlie, in that time, was also arrested. So when Charlie's trial came around, now Katie, who during the first two trials was like, nope, I'm innocent, I didn't do it. Now Katie's like, okay, well, yeah. Like, I helped facilitate it for Charlie. It was his idea. He wanted Dan dead. So I arranged this, like, I set this up for him, whatever. And Luis Garcia also testified against him. Sigfredo Garcia did not. Luis Rivera. What did I say? I said Garcia on that one, didn't I? All the names. It's been a couple years since I've covered it, but anywho, so Charlie was convicted. The day after he was convicted, his mom, who was allegedly also in on the plot to kill him, his mom booked a one-way ticket to Vietnam for her and their dad, her husband, Harvey, Wendy and Charlie's dad. So a week later, they're at the airport in Miami, getting on the plane. They have a stop in Dubai, and then they're going to be Vietnam. A one-way ticket. And the cops show up and arrest Donna. Since then, she has been accused of using her attorney's cell phone to call Harvey so that they could like arrange witness tampering. She's also been accused by a jailhouse snitch of offering to pay for witness testimony. And she's also really mad that the jail menu is nothing but carbs. That happened. She is entitled AF. Yes. Yes. So she was supposed to go to trial. What was why didn't I do that when I was doing something? It wasn't Karen Reed. Oh, Lori Shaver, because I was going to be in person for Lori Shaver. So the first day of trial that was supposed to be in the fall, the first day of trial, they ended up having to push the trial because she was going to use the same attorney as her son, but there was conflict of interest. They had signed conflict of interest stuff, but anyway, it ended up not, like, kind of backing out of that. So they had to postpone the trial, and now it's starting again, or about to start again. August 19th-ish, I think, is when they're starting jury selection for that one. So and I think potentially after this one, maybe maybe Wendy will be next. We'll see. I don't know. Wendy's very flippant about the whole thing, so who knows? But so there's that. So that's Donna Adelson. That one's another one of those that's just like strange in the fiction. Like he would like staple $100 bills together and what, not papaya, what's the food that they were, anyway, there's like all these like weird things that come from that trial. Oh God, Wendy's book. Wendy needs to be next. Arrest Wendy. I think it might happen. And Georgia, also the prosecutor in that one, Georgia Kappelman, is fantastic. She's awesome. She's great. So there's that. So that's one option. That one is going to be starting jury selection August 19th, I think. And then, if I remember right, somewhere around in there. And then, so I would say, like, depending on how long that takes. How long did it take to get a jury seated in Charlie's? I don't remember. Brian Walsh in October. So Brian Walsh, that one, Proctor was the lead investigator in that one. It's a lot of the same players as far as the law enforcement goes, anyway. So that one will be an interesting too. Maybe we'll put up a poll on, maybe we'll pick a few and see if we can put up a poll on Crime Junkie Jury on the community tab and see what y'all are most interested in. Or maybe on social media or something like that. We'll see if we can maybe do a, Wendy better not plea. She won't. Remember what, she's supposed to be an attorney, and what was it that she said she didn't know what it meant last year? And it was like one of the most basic attorney things in the world, and we're like, bruh. I'm not a fan of hers either. So Brian, let me write these down on my little handy dandy notebook. Brian Walsh in October. And then Wendy Adelson. I mean, not Wendy. Look at me just manifesting stuff. Donna Adelson. Look, if Wendy does get arrested and she goes to trial, y'all saw it here first, folks. We just manifested that. Any other ones that you can think of? Hockey brothers killed by drunk driver. I don't know what that one is. I've been out of the loop a little bit since Karen Reed stuff. You got my vote for Brian Walsh. So it looks like Brian Walsh and Donna might be the top two right now for the next one. Courtney Clinny. When is that one? Courtney Clinny has been pushed so many times. I haven't checked it in a long time because it kept getting pushed. Stephen Stearns. That one's near our house. That one's sad. I did see the baby AI. That was really cute. That was really cute. Morphe. That one will be a while. But that one's a long time coming. Stearns for sure. I'll look up and see. See, some of these I don't even know because some of them I know have gotten delayed and moved and stuff like that. So I'll see when some of these are. Sound good? And we'll try to get a poll up and see what everybody's the most interested in. Donna Adelson would be a really good one. Brian Walsh would be a good one because it is some of the same people. So we'll see. We'll get it together and figure it out. Because we can never stay apart for too long. All right, y'all. If you have not hit the like button yet, please do so on the way out. And I will see you all again very, very soon. Brian Walsh's hearings are wild because Buchanan is absolutely ridiculous as usual, but he somehow knows and understands the word rendered. Oh, he's something else. All right, y'all. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. I will see you back on July 23rd, if not sooner. I appreciate all of you. Sandra Birchmore, we can't stream because it's federal. All right. I love you all. Thank you.